Welcome to the Transition Podcast. Today's guest is NFL great, former University of Maryland defensive backs, and I believe safety as well?
I did play safety. I played every position on defense except D tackle.
Okay.
Except D tackle. I wasn't big enough.
Even linebacker.
Linebacker, DN, I played it all.
That's awesome. So I got Nolan Carroll on the Transition Podcast. Nolan, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, man, having me on here. And I also want to say I apologize to everybody for the communication a couple weeks ago.
No worries, man.
It was my fault.
We pivoted.
Okay.
Dante was a Nolan Carroll last week. Nobody knew.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Dante. All right, cool.
No,
cool.
I ended up shooting the podcast with Dante, so everything works out, man.
All right, cool.
So Nolan, before we get started, tell me a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Mm-hmm. A little bit about Nolan Carroll. Where'd you go to high school?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. Both my parents were in the military. My mom, she was in the Navy. Dad was in the Air Force. My dad retired after 25 years. He was a senior master sergeant in the Air Force. My mom, lieutenant commander in the Navy. So I have a Navy background. When people think of military, they think discipline and beatings and stuff like that. No, my parents were just more disciplined about respect and hard work. You know, that's what they instilled in me. But I grew up in a tiny town called Green Cove Springs. So we moved from Jacksonville, moved about 15 minutes south to Green Cove Springs. Then after that, I attended the high school of Clay High School, which is small town high school, country high school. It's kind of out there.
I love the country, by the way.
Yeah,
we can talk about that later.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm a country kid, man. So I think that helped me a lot, just being away from all the distractions and just learning country roots and just learning that you have to work for every single thing because nothing's given to you, and that's what you learn just being isolated and being away from all the hoopla and all the attention. So I think that's where, having that with my parents just really helped my upbringing. And then I went to the University of Maryland in 2005, played receiver first when I got to the University of Maryland, then switched over to defensive back in 2007, ended up playing defensive back from 2007 to 2009, and then got drafted to the Miami Dolphins in the 5th round in 2010, and played 8 years in the NFL, played for the Dolphins, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Dallas Cowboys, and here I am today with you, man.
How was that, dude?
It was cool, and I think my journey was a little bit different than everybody else's. I think throughout my time playing football and my experiences, I dealt with a lot of different trauma, different setbacks, and I broke my leg 3 different times at 3 different times in my career. I was one of the best wide receivers in the state in 2004, and I ended up breaking my leg my second game of my senior year. And when I did that, really everybody kind of fell off, saying that, I'm not going to be able to be back to how I was. I'm not going to have the same speed, same qualities, capabilities that I had to get all these scholarships. And, fortunately enough, Ralph Friedgen, who was the head coach of Maryland at the time, still saw those same values in me, still gave me a chance to be able to go to the University of Maryland. So I went there. Like I said, I played receiver.
Was Maryland a dream school, or did you have all the?
It definitely.
Or because of the injuries, Maryland came as an opportunity?
Well, it was a bunch of different things that were going on, weird stuff. So I committed to Florida. Ron Zook was the head coach at the time.
Damn.
And he got fired. And he ended up going to Illinois. He tried to convince me to go to Illinois, and I said, I know nothing about Illinois at all, so I'm not going
Chicago.
Not
doing that.
Yeah, it's too cold for me. He came and he had a big old Blazers, jagged North Face windbreaker, tried to tell me and convince me, just come up to Illinois, it's going to be fine. I said, nope, I'm good. And then I had a buddy that was playing at Ole Miss, and he told me, man, just come to Ole Miss, you'll be fine. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and commit to Ole Miss. Then Dave Cutcliffe, who was the coach, who was Peyton Manning's head coach at Tennessee,
okay,
he ended up getting fired from Ole Miss, and then he ended up going to Duke, and you see what he's doing at Duke now. But Ed Orgeron, who is the head coach at LSU, was his replacement. And I remember this Louisiana accent just coming into my door, talking to my parents.
Raging Cajun, baby.
Just yelling. Like, I mean, he was speaking, but he was hollering at us. And I said, I can't. There's no way I can play for a guy like this. He's just so, he's animated. He was a great guy. It's just I wasn't ready for that yet. So then, Maryland was still there. Coach Friesen was still coming to my school, checking on me. He had my defensive coordinator, who at the time was my recruiter. He ended up coming to school, still checking on me, still letting me know, hey, we still want you to come to Maryland. So it ended up working out because my mom had a family member that she grew up with in the Navy that lived in Maryland. She lived in Fort Washington, about 30 minutes away from the University of Maryland. So even if I was getting homesick, I could go somewhere and I could kind of get away and release, instead of having all that tension, staying in school and getting homesick
for you.
Yeah. So I was able to do that. And I picked Maryland. I thought it was the best thing for me, which it ended up being the best thing for me because I learned a lot, not only from going to school, but from my coach, Ralph Friesen. A lot of the same values and teachings that my parents had instilled in me. It was the same things that Coach Friesen had as well. And he just enhanced it while I was in school. He was always challenging me every single day to be better than I was the day before. And it wasn't necessarily about a football player. It was more so off the field, getting my education, being a good person to the people in the school, being a good person to everybody in the community. So those things I think really helped me and was able to help me grow as a person and stand on my own, because when I went to school with nothing, I went to school away from everybody. So that was a big change and transition for me.
How big was your high school? How many students?
I think we graduated with 220.
Wow, that's awesome, yeah.
Because at the time Jacksonville was growing, so they were building new schools, and at one point we had 5,000 kids at our school, and then we had to break it up. So a lot of those kids that were going to Clay High School ended up going to another school called Fleming Island, which was closer to them. So a lot of those kids wanted to go there because they thought it was a new hip school. But the one thing I do remember is my head coach, he brought all the football guys in the locker room, and he gave us a choice. He said, look, if you guys want to go and chase the girls that are going to this new school, you can go and do that all day. But if you want to win football games and get a scholarship, go to college, you stay at Clay High School. And for me, I was like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I want to go to college. That was my main goal. Before the NFL, before anything like that, I just wanted to go to college.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you speak about your mom and dad very highly. You exude that. That relationship helped you a lot throughout to become the man that you are today and carried you your whole life.
Yeah, I think still to this day, my parents still are teaching me things. They always had my best interests at heart, and everything they did, I would see it. My dad would sacrifice, his time away from his interests. He was an architect. He loved designing things. That was his passion. He loved building things, and he had to take time away from that to raise us, because there were times where my mom, she would have to go away for 3-4 months on patrol or get shipped out to wherever she had to go. And the same thing with my dad. He would have to leave for 3 or 4 months. So in a sense, we kind of grew up in a single family home, but it was still together. I never felt like, oh, it's mom raising me, oh, it's dad raising me. I always felt like it was both parents raising me. I just knew my dad had to go to work. He had to go off somewhere. My mom had to go off somewhere. But at the end of the day, they always made sure that they reassured us that they loved us still, and the things that they were doing were for our benefit.
That's amazing. So growing up in a military family, my father was in the military, and he served. Actually, he served in the National Guard and whatnot.
Okay.
But my mom definitely wasn't. So how is it growing up with a mom with a Navy background and being a woman, kind of is it first kind of like in a man's world, How did that mold her, and how did that? I mean, your mom seems to be a tough woman and also a nurturer at the same time.
Yeah, she is a tough cookie, and she's actually. I don't like to call myself famous. I think she's famous. My mom, she after she retired from the military, went straight into politics. My mom was the lieutenant governor of Florida from 2000, but my rookie year, 2010 to 2013. She ended up retiring. Yeah, and now she just does consulting work. She actually Trump hired her 2 years ago, so now she's on Trump's staff. But it's more of going to war monuments and being an extension of Trump. Like, wow. He flew her to Paris a couple months ago for. So
your mom was the lieutenant governor of the state of Florida.
Yeah. So she's.
Who was the governor back then? Was it
Rick Scott?
Rick Scott was.
Yeah. And
he did a great job with the state, man. He made it healthy.
It was my mom. It wasn't Rick. It was my mom. My mom, she's done a lot of things that she doesn't want accolades for. Like, my mom's built up a lot of stuff in Florida. She's provided a lot of jobs to a lot of people in the state of Florida, and she never wants credit for that. She doesn't want accolades for that because in her heart, she generally feels like she wants to help people in politics. And the reason why she got out of it was because she felt like it was a dirty game. She felt like when you come into it, it's genuine.
100%.
But when you're in it, it's like, man, oh, you got to do this for me for this. You got to do this for me for that.
You owe me that favor.
Yeah, and she said, I don't want to be a part of that. That's not why I got into this. So she ended up retiring as lieutenant governor. She had one more year to go, but she said, I can't do it anymore. This is not something that I want to do because it's not fun anymore. It's not genuine.
So I got to meet Ron DeSantis, who's now our governor.
Ron's cool.
And I met the lieutenant governor, which is now Anna.
I don't know who the lieutenant governor is.
What's her name? I think it's Anna, guys, help me out with that. Anyhow, I got to meet her. It's a woman.
Okay.
She's well-spoken, amazing. So, I mean, it's awesome. I have a little girl, man. And we live in a world where sometimes, I actually met her at a Latin Builders convention, and she was super sweet. Obviously very smart. Mm-hmm. But it's amazing to see how women nowadays are also, taking on these jobs and careers in public service that are demanding, not easy, and you're in the limelight. And at the same time, I mean, they're moms, man, and they got their wives, and they got to be able to manage that. And I think sometimes, it's you got to give them credit, dude.
I do. I definitely give my mom a lot of credit. She came out with a book, I think 5 years ago. It's called When You Get There, and it's basically her life's journey. And my mom was an immigrant from Trinidad. And she came over to the States when she was 8 years old, and she couldn't live with her actual family. She had to go and move to New York and live with her mom's sister. So for a longest time, I thought my mom's sister was my actual grandma. I didn't know until I was about 12 years old that all this had happened because my mom kept it from me. She didn't want any discrepancies of, oh, that's not my real grandma. I don't really respect her like that. She wanted us to feel like everybody was a family. So, I commended her for that because she wanted to make sure there was no rift in the family. But for her to do that, and then she enlisted in the military, the lowest level you can is an aviation mechanic. And back then, a black woman in the 70s as an aviation mechanic, unheard of. It was hard. Like for her, she was the racial slurs, getting picked on every day. She had to deal with that. And these are things that she would never tell me public or personally. She would never tell me. But when I read the book, I was just like, man, you went through a lot to get to where you are now, and to be able to do the stuff that you've done, as well as have a family. That by far, that takes strength.
I don't know how we got here, but I'm going to have to. I want to ask you this question because we're obviously living in a time where our country's divided. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've ever talked about politics on this show, but your mom being the lieutenant governor and you being brought up around it, I can only imagine how educated you are in it. Mm-hmm. But I guess my question is, there seems to be a divide where, you have one party that states that, our president is racist and whatnot. And then you have the conservative party who's saying that's not true. So I guess I don't want to talk about either parties. But my question is, as a black man in this country, do you think there are more challenges that are real out there, or is the answer yes, there is, and at the same time, is it because there's a lot of attention being brought to it intentionally? I'm trying to gauge it,
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, and I can attest this because I've been wrongfully arrested before. Even when I was in college, when my mom hears this, she'll be like, "Oh my goodness!" But I've been wrongfully arrested 3 times when I was at the University of Maryland just for being black because I fit a description of somebody that had robbed somebody, killed somebody. And I remember the first time My buddy.
That's crazy, no?
Yeah, I know. That's how I was exposed to it, and that's what made me more aware of it. Is
like this is happening
real
to me.
Yeah, it's still real. Even though Martin Luther King did what he did back then, it's still prevalent to this day. You still have these issues to this day, and I think that the main cause of it is because we're not all banding together. I think it's because we have so much, I want to be in the limelight. I want to get the attention to do this movement, that not everybody's coming together to say, hey, look, we need to be one voice. We need to be able to come together as a large group to make this change. And I think that's not what's happening, because if you see in the Black community, and I think really it starts with how music is portrayed and really how everybody portrays the Black community, not really the Black community, all race besides white races. I think that's how it's portrayed in, the partying, the rap beef, the spending money on chains. Nobody's really there's not more attention from the people that have this position of power in the spotlight to educate our youth, to be able to let them know this is what's going on. This is how we need to change it. This is how you need to represent yourself now so we can help future generations. I don't think there's enough of that awareness going on. And I think that's why you have the rift between the parties, because you have one party that's saying, well, you need to help us. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, we don't know, but you have to figure that out. Then you have another party that is basically, well, I'm in power now, but I'm in it because it's for my benefit, so I'm not going to help the people anymore. So when you have those two things going on, nobody's getting helped, and they're just helping themselves. So there's no real progression in society to be able to address these issues that are going on right now. So I think that's why there's so much banging, there's so much finger pointing, because nobody's really taking the initiative to band everybody together and to make that change.
Look, I went to junior college in Dodge City Community College in Kansas. Mm-hmm. It's in western Kansas, in the middle of nowhere. And that was arguably the first time I ever faced racism. Mm-hmm. And I faced it in my locker room. The first time, I'm a Miami boy, mm-hmm. playing, JUCO ball in western Kansas, and I walked into the locker room, and Nolan, I wasn't welcomed. That is the truth. I was not welcomed. With that said, I felt like my parents had kind of prepared me for that. Mm-hmm. And in some weird way, I was prepared for that. I kind of knew I was an outsider. But instead of me attacking that issue and taking it personal, I realized that I came from a city. And this is where the city life kind of gave me a little bit of an advantage in that game. Was I realized that some of the people that I was playing with now had only lived in a certain town, had only been around a certain population, and they really weren't exposed to anything other than what they had seen for the last 18 years. Mm-hmm. And what I did was I just, they did little things to me, right? But I knew I could ball. Yeah. So I said, okay, I know I'm gonna catch their attention on the field. And then when they were, stupid things, man, like weightlifting, right? Bench press is empty. I go grab a weight. Homeboy comes and takes my bench away. Shit like that, where I'm like being tried. I'm like, hold on, I'm a man too. Like, I can spark you up right now. Yeah. Like, we can throw it down. Like, yeah. This is normal to me. Yeah. But on the flip side, I would say, oh, I'm sorry, I was gonna use that. And then I kind of killed them with kindness.
That's how you got to do it.
And I did it with faith and saying, you know what, like I'm not gonna be judgmental. They're judging me. I don't want. If I go back and return, this is gonna get ugly, mm-hmm. right? And those guys today are my boys, man.
That's cool. That's real cool, though.
Yeah. Those are guys today that I can call, that I can, we're all in different parts of the country, but they got to meet me. They got to meet my family. So I think. I guess I give myself a little bit of credit of keeping a positive attitude in that environment and really not listening to other friends of mine that would have said, oh, you should do this or you should do that or you should fight him or square up. I'm like, no, that wasn't my approach. I almost took it on a more mature fact and said, you know what, you just don't know, dude. Yeah. And I think that's what's going on in today's world is where you have division, and I think it's intentional in some cases. I think some politicians definitely have their own agenda.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But I think at the end of the day, Nolan, we all got to remember that we're all Americans, man. Mm-hmm. And your mother and my father and other people wore a uniform so that you and I can be in this podcast today, so that you could play in the NFL, so that I can own my business, so that people have jobs. I mean, did you go to sleep at night thinking last night that there's going to be a bomb?
No.
that happens every single day, as you know. I was telling my wife at dinner last night, I said, we're so rich, man, because people complain a lot and people are so negative. And I'm in this moment in my life where I have zero tolerance. Like my gas is empty for excuses, right? We live in the best country in the world. You have an opportunity every single day to make a difference. It's up to you, man. And you can control your attitude. Just because somebody's like, if somebody wants to be racist or somebody wants to be disrespectful, you don't got to go down to their level, man. You don't got to go riot. Don't do that shit. Exactly. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And that's where, as a Cuban American kid, I don't buy into that bullshit, because at the same time, it's almost like that's how they prove
that you don't belong.
That you don't belong.
Yeah.
And instead of them saying, hold on a minute, these parties aren't going to change us, dude. We got to change ourselves. And I think specifically, it's a fair statement in the black community, or what they call, quote unquote, we talk about the hood, right? The only people that can change the hood is the hood. It ain't going to be the mayor. It ain't going to be the governor. Yes, those people can be influential. Those people can create opportunities. But at the end of the day, if you don't renew your mind and you don't change the mindset, man, you're gonna be stuck in generational patterns. And it's proven. History is showing us that this has continued. And it's a simple play. The play is, you understand football, change you.
Yeah.
Your four walls, bro. If you can change your four walls, you can change. That becomes contagious, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
And let's stop talking about the rate. Okay, if it's out there, let's not give it more energy. Like, we're just putting it out there and making it worse and worse. At some point, we just gotta say, you know what? There's a God up there. We're gonna do the right thing, and then you start eliminating those people. The poison that exists out there. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely agree with you. I'm the same way. That mindset that you have, where there should be no excuses, because you and I both know in sports we've gone through things where we've been down. We've fallen off the pedestal, and we've had to find a way to get back up with really nobody else's help. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's sports, it doesn't matter if it's business, it doesn't matter what it is. You should not have an excuse, especially now in today's age with social media and all this stuff that's going on. You should not have an excuse to say, well, my environment is this, so I'm gonna end up like this. I'm not gonna try and get my education because my boys want to rob and steal and do all that other stuff. They just want to hang out in gangs and pretend. Those are the things that you got to eliminate. And like you said, it starts up in your mind. You got to look around and ask yourself, do you want to live like this the rest of your life? And if the answer is no, then find a way to change it. All you got to do is just go on your phone and search for something that you're interested in, find it, learn about it, and just improve it and try and apply it to your life. Whatever it is, it could be you want to be a car detail guy. Find a way. How do you set your business up for that? What do you got to do? Do you want to do mobile detailing? Do you want to get your own store? Like, those are just certain things. I'm just throwing out an example, but you have the power to change your environment. You have the power to change your thinking. And the more that you get comfortable with what's around you and being satisfied with your environment, nothing's going to change. And like you said, generational pattern. If you have a son, he's going to look at the same thing. Oh, this is how I'm supposed to live? Okay, this is how I'm going to live. Then he has a son. Same thing. It's going to be like that forever until somebody takes a stand to change and bring awareness to what needs to be brought aware to make that change.
Correct. And it starts in your heart, and it starts in your mindset, man, and really not being caught up and not allowing that thing to drain you. And and it's easier said than done, because some of these kids that are out there playing sports or people in our whatever case may be, sometimes they go home to a family that's preaching that, and you're not born racist, right?
No.
When God created you, you come out of the womb. You're happy. First thing you do is cry. It's great sign. You become that way.
Yep.
You're taught that. You're given a seed of some sort of I call it poison that makes you think that. And I think that we can control that, man. We can say, you know what? Even if yes, racism exists, but this is what we're gonna do. We're not gonna give it energy. We're gonna do the right thing. And when you start to do that, I don't know how and why, but the good things start to happen. I think it's when everybody's on guard and everybody's, it's like we talk about police shootings, right? I have a really good friend of mine. He's the head of homicide for City of Miami Beach. What he sees weekly is beyond our comprehension. I just came back from a concert with him where I spent 3 days with him, and we were having a couple drinks and kind of keep it real. And his eyes teared up on me, and he's like, "Dude, you don't understand the stress I have, man. Like, anywhere I go, they flip a camera on me, and then you know what he says? It makes it worse because now you're trying to help somebody, and you don't know how to, like, you don't know, like, because you're doing the right thing, but you don't know if you're gonna get shot. You don't know, like, and he's like, there's been bad cops, but I'm not a bad cop. Like, I'm here to help people.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, man. Yeah. And I think at some point, this country really needs to find the pulse of our heart and say, hold on a minute, this bullshit's got to stop, man. Yeah. This is poison.
Yeah.
And it's being fed on the news. It's being fed in conversations. And at the end of the day, man, it shouldn't. I don't think life's that complicated. I think us human beings complicate that. But anyhow, I guess enough of that political talk. So let's get into, you play in the NFL for 8 years. You're in the limelight. Every Sunday you get a paycheck, a nice one too.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
You play in front of thousands of people. Arguably nobody says no to you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, you're on top of the world. Yeah. That comes to an end. Talk to me about your transition, man.
I think my transition wasn't that hard. Okay. I really think because of my parents, my background, they've always taught me that football should not identify who you are. You should stand alone by yourself. It should be Nolan Carroll, the NFL football player. It shouldn't be NFL football player Nolan Carroll, if that makes sense. Football should not define me. I should define football. Because at the end of the day, it's a bunch of players that define the league. So it shouldn't be the league defining the players. And I always had that mindset of where, okay, what else do I want to do? I know they always say don't think about plan B because you got to be all in on plan A. But at the same time, it's such a small window that you have an opportunity to gain as much money, fame, whatever it is. And then when it stops, what is your identity after that? And a lot of guys have a problem with that because they've engulfed themselves in this, I'm a football player, this is who I am. They kind of forget who they really are, what their upbringing, what their roots are, where they came from, the people that helped them get there, that they kind of fall into this facade of going out and these lavish trips, or everybody should bow down to me because I'm a football player. And when all that stops, it's hard for them to grasp that. It's hard for them to think, oh man, this is really over. What do I do? But they still end up having those same habits from the league, hanging out with their guys, spending money on expensive cars, expensive trips, expensive jewelry, clothes, all this other stuff. And that's why you see a lot of guys go broke in the next 4 years, 2 to 5 years, they go broke because they don't know what they want to do. And for me, I've always kept that in the back of my mind. Every offseason, I would always look for something that interests me. And I know that business was something that always excited me. Business and apps were something that always caught my attention. It was because my mom, she owned a hair salon. So my mom and dad. So I was able to see the headaches of building a business, the headaches of having employees, the headaches of employees stealing money, the headaches of having employees go behind their back to have other people or steal their customers to go to another store. I've seen all that stuff before. So I knew the problems that would happen in building a business and having a business, but at the same time, it enticed me because I wanted to have my own business. Because when I was in the league, it was the same thing, and we don't really realize this, but we're our own brand. Us as a player, we're building our own brand. When you're in college, the stuff that you put on film, same as baseball, the stuff that you put on film is your resume. That's you. They're buying you as a person, as a player. It just so happens that now you're on a team. You represent the team as a player. So when you start thinking of yourself individually, I'm not thinking selfishly, but as a player, how you build yourself up, how you build your network up around you. So when you do get out the game, it's easier for you. And I think that's what happened to me. I was able to utilize my mom, utilize my dad, and their connects to different people to explain to me, okay, this is how you set up a business. This might be your other interest where you can do this or do that. I had all these other outlets. So when I got out the league, at first it was shocking, but then that went away after a month. And I said, okay, I know what my interests are. I know what I want to do. let me just go ahead and do that. And for me, it's been fun because I know the ups and downs that are going to come with this journey, and I like it because every single day I'm not working for somebody. I'm working for myself. I'm building towards something, which always excites me. I always wake up every single day, no matter how tired I am, no matter what's going on in my mind throughout the day, I know that I'm always building towards something greater than myself, and that's really, I want to say, it's me, but it's not me. It's my brand and my name and who I am, separate from the NFL.
And that's amazing, man. As an ex-professional athlete, you have that mindset. And again, I'm going to have to give a lot of credit to your parents, man.
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
I'm going to have to give a lot of credit to them because it also proves to me, Nolan, and you actually, hearing this inspires me as a father and as a husband, because it only proves to me, man, like I'm doing it right, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but sometimes I check myself. Like nobody's written a book on how to be a dad, right?
Yeah, no.
I learned the best I could from my parents are divorced. So in my life, to be completely blunt, I had both extremes. I'm gonna call a spade, man. I had one part of my family that was very dysfunctional, and then I had another part of the family that was a little more functional.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I identify so much with baseball. That's kind of how I was able to find my confidence and find who I am. And in reality, that wasn't who I am. I have a lot of faith, and I believe now. Like you ask me, I'm a child of God. I'm just like that's who I am. Yeah. And I happen to own JAG, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna die, and we all die, and I'm just that's who I belong to.
Yeah.
But really, it just, going back to what you said, it proves, man, that when you give your children a healthy environment, yeah, I'm sure your parents gave you, they let you go, as you got older, they gained more confidence in you. You were playing football, but you still had that, man. You could still run back to your safety net.
Yeah,
and as big strong guy, I can throw it down the field. Still needed mom and dad to give them love.
Exactly.
And that's my point. I've had other football players on the podcast, and you'd be surprised what they say, man. Like their comments have always been I'll give you a mutual comment was, you're taught to be aggressive. Football is my way of life. It was my way out. And that's how they identified. So when that transition comes, it's tough, dude. On the flip side, I love that I have you in the show now because I'm also showing that the transition doesn't have to be that way. The transition can be healthy. Yeah. The transition can be exciting. And I love that you're going to be, it looks like you're an entrepreneur. You want to build, you want to develop, and you're going to be the instrument to the NFL, just like others. I mean, I've dealt with Jonathan Vilma in other cases, and I see that he's doing stuff. Brett Romberg's.
I remember Brett.
Brett's with us here as a client too, and he's got a show, and it's awesome to see athletes really, man, transition in a positive manner. Not to say that you guys, we all don't miss a game in the rush every once in a while. I think that's only normal, but that it doesn't have to be strictly like, I turn to drugs and alcohol because I don't know who the hell I am.
Exactly. I think if you look at it from a standpoint of, I've been given a second chance. I've been given another life because you had one leading up. Well, for me, I had one leading up to football, not really knowing what I wanted to do after that. And then all of a sudden I'm done with football and it's now, oh, wow. Oh, I got a whole, this is what the world looks like, because you've just been in this bubble, this shell your whole life of just being a routine of getting ready for the football season. Football season comes, you're in the grind of the season. And all of a sudden, you're back in the off season, back in getting ready for it.
The structure is what I think we start is like what throws you off. Like, hold on, I gotta wake up and go to the gym today.
Yeah,
that's a little rough. That's when you're like, shit.
That's one thing that got me. I was so used to waking up at 6:15 in the morning,
and then, this routine, man.
Yeah, and just doing it. And then all of a sudden, I woke up at 6:15, and I'm like, hold on,
I got nothing to do today.
I don't have to do anything. let me sleep till like 8 or something like that. Or let me just try and sleep all day. But those are the things that I think, going back to your point, that routine that you get into for so many years, even before you get in the NFL, you're doing it in high school, you do it in college, that it just becomes who you are. You're just so used to doing that. And when it's kind of taken from you, that's when your mind starts to detract and go into things that aren't really healthy for you because all you know is really football. And if you haven't try to expand your mind into other things, that's when you just revert to the party and the drugs, you know, doing the dumbest things that you can think. And that's where you see a lot of guys after football getting in trouble or
going downhill,
depression,
man.
all this, all these different things. And I think it's because of them being scared to not embracing that second part of their life. Because, you know, when you're done with football, some guys are done when they're 25, some guys are done when they're 33, 34. They're still young. I've never seen, besides Tom Brady, a guy that's going to be in his 40s and has got the rest of his life. Even if you play until you're 40, you still got a long time to live. You just got to figure out what you want to do. And after you do that, just go full speed.
And you're young, man. You're in your 30s. In your 30s, you know, I believe that's when you start building. In your 40s, you start taking it to the next level. In your 50s, you've built a solid foundation in your business, in your life. But yeah, man, that's awesome, dude. That transition came with it's been healthy for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you talking to athletes at all? Do you stay in touch a little bit with the NFL and kind of, I mean, are you utilizing that? Because I think you can be such an instrument, man. Without you realizing, like looking at you from the outside, I'm like, you can be such an instrument to the NFL and show guys, you know. I mean, I'm not saying, I know you seem like a very humble dude. Not look at me, but like there's opportunities. Yeah. And one of the things that I get in trouble for saying this sometimes with certain people, but I think it's the truth. I think the athlete has an advantage that nobody else has.
That's true. That's your 100%. Name recognition.
You've been your whole life. You're coachable, right? You have to be. I'm not. You get your ass kicked out of the team,
True.
right? So you know how to take instructions. You have discipline. You got to have character. You definitely got to have teamwork.
Yep.
And you know that you're never bigger than the program.
That's true. That is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's bigger than the program. So when you walk into the corporate world, into the business world, even if you're not going to be the CEO, man, you know what? You know how to work for the for the coach.
Yeah.
And you know how to be on time. You know how to lead others. You know how to respect. And that started on for you,
young age.
For many of you who don't know, we were talking about this before. Nolan was a soccer player till he was 16 years old. Touched the football at 16. So since he was the age of 5, you started taking instructions. That's why I have my kids in sports, Nolan. My kid's probably never going to play professional sports. I'm fully aware of that. I mean, that's the 1% of the 1%. From your mouth to God's ears, man.
You did it.
Yeah,
so it's possible.
It's possible. There's no doubt. But my intention is that they understand how to build character, face adversity, learn how to fail, create strong character, and care about people, bro. You know, one of the things that the game taught me was, you know, we all came from different backgrounds, but when you put on the uniform, you're one, dude, and it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And that's love, you know, and you start to care more about the guy next to you. And I was speaking at FIU the other day to the baseball team, and I said, you know what? When you start caring about the guy next to you more, magical things start to happen. Always, man. You know, it's when you don't make it about you.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And I think that's good. That's what you're doing with your kids. And I'm doing the same thing with my son. I want to make sure he's in sports so he gets that. And I can see it. And we were just talking about it. You know, we can see that in our kids that they're finally figuring out who they are in the sense of in their little world, but now they know, oh, okay, this is what I have to do. This is how I have to follow directions. And that helps them when they get off the field and they come home. Okay, I got to listen to dad. I got to listen to mom. This is the authority here. And I got to listen to them because they're going to direct me in the right direction. And I think that just builds over time. The more they're involved in different sports and different activities, the more they're around you, the more they're growing to see how you move. That just develops them even faster. I guarantee you, a year from now, when you see your son, you're gonna look at him and be like, "Oh my goodness, I wasn't there when I was your age." And that's what I'm looking at my son now. He's 5 years old, and I'm looking at him, and it's funny because I missed a soccer game. He lives in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and his mom texted me. He said, "Your son is on another level." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's telling kids they got to stay focused, they got to be motivated, we got to win this game. And I'm like, hold on. I was 5 years old. I wasn't thinking about none of this. I was just thinking about, okay, let me score a couple goals and go home and play some video games. You know, he's motivating kids at 5 years old. Qualities that I wish I had at his age, and I see that now. And I just know if I just continue him down that path to be able to continue to do that and help others and encourage others around him, the sky's the limit for him.
I see the same thing with my son Sean. He's like, he has a switch. I mean, he's off the field. He's like this. I mean, my kid loves babies and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And then he loves to like mess around. And then he goes on the soccer field, and it's like, is that my son?
Exactly.
And he's maturing. And my daughter plays tennis as well, and she's maturing. And I mean, I'll give you an example. The days I'm in the soccer game, and I'm learning soccer. I didn't play soccer, so I'm telling him what to do, and he's like, "Dad, I got this," you know. And he's leading. He's playing midfielder.
Yeah.
Midfielder. I mean, he passes the ball a lot. Well, he's fast and whatnot. Yeah. But long story short, is like it's almost like he's the point guard, right? And he's seeing the field, and I'm like, man, he's 5 years old. He was just turned 6, and he's already learning how to anticipate. He's learning how to like read.
That's amazing.
He reads character, and it's what the field teaches you, man. And the field teaches you what the classroom can't.
Always.
And I'll take the field sometimes over the classroom.
I'll always take the field over the classroom.
Sorry, guys, but I'll take BC students all day long.
Of course.
So to wrap this up, man, what does the future for Nolan Carroll look like?
The future is good, man. Like I said, this journey's been great. It's taken me to a bunch of different places. Like I started off just in business. I opened up a 3D store last year, 3D printing store. But then after that, it just one thing led to another, and now I have my app called yzTRU.
What's it called?
yzTRU. YOOTRO. And it's really, I got this. Well, actually, my business partner brought it to me. He was working on an app that was to help small businesses, and at the time, I was going through this, transition of building my own business and marketing and getting it out there. And I saw this problem where it's hard to market as a small business. Once you start, nobody knows what your business is. Even though they know who I am, they don't know what my business is. So you got to figure out, how do we market to people in the area? How do you entice people to come into your store and to be able to buy your product?
What product are you selling?
I'm not selling any one product. I'm basically letting the small businesses in the area, not just this area, we're in New York, LA, Chicago, and Miami, but I want to base it in Miami. And it's really about giving the small businesses an audience that they wouldn't necessarily know they had or could have if they did it by themselves. A couple of statistics, 55% of small businesses outsource their logos and their website, but they don't with their marketing or anything else, which is so weird because that should go hand in hand. If you're trying to develop a business, people associate your business with the brand logo that you have, but a lot of them don't do that. Only 14% do that, which is weird to me. And those 14%, they don't know what they're doing. They end up spending too much on a budget, or they try and do it themselves, and they end up, in the first year of business, they end up going out of business because, one, they don't know the budget, two, they're not educated, or three, an SEO company is taking advantage of them. And those were the things that I was seeing myself. I would go to an SEO company and have them help me with my stuff, but all they were doing was just throwing numbers around saying, oh yeah, we had 6,000, 7,000 people view your site. Well, that's cool. How many people from that clicked those sites came into my store? 0. So what yzTRU is able to do is get those eyes, those audience of people that download to these small businesses to let them see what deals are going on, so they get coupons, cashback rewards. On top of that, we're going to give a percentage of what the businesses pay, and it's not a lot, $50 to $100, depending on the audience that they want to reach, and we give that back to the customer. So we give a small percentage, 10 cents back for every time they look at an ad. But as well as whenever they purchase something, we help them invest into their 401k. So we take about another 5%, and we just basically send it back to them, and we give them the option: do you want to invest or do you want to keep the money? So we want to be able to help the businesses and the customers on the same side. I feel like both sides can help each other, because the biggest thing, the way a business is able to grow, is the retention that they have from customers continually coming in, and the digital marketing. If you can have those two, your business will always scale. And I want to be able to help that, not just here in Miami, but really around the nation.
That's amazing. Last question. What advice would you give parents of athletes who are under the pressure of today's society, or today's NCAA rules, where kids nowadays are kids are going to start making college football just passed a rule that kids are going to start getting paid, schools are going to come after you. What advice would you give parents?
I would just say, teach your kids to just be themselves. Just be more aware of what's going on out in the world. don't just think because you send your kids to college that they're fine. You know, they're still teenagers when they go into college. They don't become, I don't really think you become a man until you get out of college, because you're still in that environment of, you know, your friends, you still got parties and stuff going around. But I think they really need to make them more aware of what's going on as a college athlete, to say, hey, look, you're going to be getting money now. It's not one of those things where, you know, parents always have sometimes they have their hands out saying, well, we need to pay for this, we need to pay for that. I think parents need to stay away from that. Let the kids figure out who they want to be in life, but also guide them at the same time, because at the end of the day, if everything goes wrong, the person they're going to come back to is the parents. But if the parents are also on the other side and fighting the kids are going to think, I have nowhere to go. So you have to be that support system for your kid, regardless of what the situation is. Tell your kids to be open and honest with you so you can help them grow, help them face any obstacle that they have, and I guarantee you it'll be fine. Because there's not one thing you can really prepare a teenager for that's going into college that's going to get money, you know, later on down the road. It's just too many variables that are out there. There's too many different people that have too many different agendas on their mind. So I can't just give them one thing. All I can say is just be there, be supportive in whatever that they're doing, and, you know, just go from there. Don't try and lead them down any one path that you want them to be down. Let them figure out who they want to be, and that's it.
Be you.
Yeah.
Love it, bro. Definitely. Appreciate it, man.
No problem, man.
It was awesome. Thanks.
Appreciate having me on, man.
Thank you, boss.
No problem, man.